all. This is Jenna Pecor, your host for the Faces of Grand Prairie podcast. And today I'm bringing us some announcements for the podcast. I am bringing us some upcoming guests that we have for our show that will be coming up this year in 2020, in the next month actually. And we have our very first ever nonprofit spotlight, which was voiced by none other than Christian Pryor. He is a senior at South Grand Prairie High School, and I put out a feeler for any high school student that goes to GPISD if they wanted to help me by recording a 1-minute spotlight for our nonprofits that are in the city of Grand Prairie to go ahead and email me. And he was the first one to email me, and I sent him over a script via email. He recorded it using our voice message system, and actually we're going to go ahead and play that for you now. So this is Christian Pryor. He is a senior at South Grand Prairie High School.
My name is Christian, and I am a senior at South Grand Prairie High School. Today I'm bringing the nonprofit spotlight on Lifeline Shelter. Lifeline is a Grand Prairie nonprofit, and their mission is to reduce homelessness among families of school children in crisis who are enrolled in the Grand Prairie Independent School District by providing emergency assistance, temporary shelter, and life skills training for their parents. This amazing organization works with numerous nonprofit groups in Grand Prairie to provide resources needed to GPISD students whose family is struggling with homelessness. If you or someone you know is in need of the services of Lifeline Shelter, or to donate your time or financial resources to the organization itself, you can find more information on their website at lifeline-shelter.org.
Thank you so much, Christian, for doing that. So Christian recorded that spot on our voice message system for the podcast. I have heard a lot of people that have said that they're not technologically savvy enough to be able to leave a voice message on the system. And I'm going to tell you right now that is not true. If you have left a voicemail on a cell phone, you can do this the same exact way. So it does require an account with Anchor FM, which is the podcasting platform that I record my podcasts on. It does not cost you any money. You just do have to make an account because they do have to know who the people are that are leaving these voicemails or voice messages. So on the website, I will put a link to how you can click to get into the voice message system. But it's basically just a click, a record, just like you would leave a voice message on a phone, set up an account, and that's it. It's really, really easy. You can do it directly from your phone. You do not need a microphone. You don't need any of that. And the way that the voice messages work is they come directly to me. I preview them. And then if they sound great and they are interesting, then I will put it on an episode. And if you decide at the end of it that you don't, after you've sent it to me, that you don't want to be on the episodes, or just say, Jenna, you know what, I didn't like that. Please don't use my stuff, and I definitely won't. You can re-record if you left something that you just aren't happy with, or you messed up, then you can go ahead and re-record and do that as many times as you need to get the recording where you want it to be. So, which is a beauty of the voice message system, and not a beauty of the voicemail, because you can't do that when you leave somebody a voicemail on your phone. But anyway, so that's how he was able to do that. And I am asking for GPISD students that are in high school, that are preferably seniors, that would like to record a spot. I am asking for you to email me at jenna@jennapecor.com and go ahead and let me know that you'd be interested in recording a spot. And those spots are going to be for our nonprofit organizations for the city of Grand Prairie. So as part of this community podcast, one of the things that I really wanted to do was bring a spotlight to all of the different nonprofit organizations that we have here. There are a lot more than people even realize, and I've always wanted to use students that were interested in some type of podcasting platform or recording or getting to know how that process goes. I've always been interested in a way to use them, and I thought this was a perfect way to do that. So nonprofits do not pay for the spotlight. This is something I do just for them, and I try to do at least one a week, or I will try to do at least one a week. so that we spotlight at least one nonprofit every week, and I'll put them on rotation so that they're always being rotated through all the episodes. And I would like for those to be recorded from the seniors at the local schools. If you have a nonprofit or know of a nonprofit that you would like to have spotlighted on the show, please go ahead and shoot me an email. You can leave me a voice message on the episode system. You can message me on the Facebook page and let me know if there is a nonprofit that you want me to talk about. I've already asked that before and I got a lot of responses. So, but if there's one that you know of that may not be one of the more well-known nonprofits, or maybe it's a new nonprofit, please go ahead and send that over to me. So, one great announcement that I'm so excited about and I've been working so hard on, we do have a new website, and it is the www.facesofgrandprairie.net website. www.facesofgrandprairie.net. This website is definitely something that I'm very proud of. And what you can do while on this site is it tells you about me, who I am as the host. It tells about the goal of what this podcast is for, what's the mission of what this podcast is for. And you also can listen to the podcast straight from this website. You can go back and look at pictures of previous guests as we are recording. You can look at upcoming episodes, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then there is a frequently asked questions list, just of things that I've gotten asked about what this podcast is all about and what it's going to be for. So definitely I would suggest that you go on there and check it out. It's a really good website. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, then you could go in there and send me a contact form. Let me know that you're interested and we can talk about that. So with that said, one of the ways that you can listen to the show is now going to be on the website. I get a lot of questions, and if you're listening right now, that means that you are able to access the show. And I get a lot of questions about how can you access a podcast. I know podcasting is, while it's very, very mainstream, there's still quite a few people in the country that have not ever listened to a podcast before. And if you're not somebody that has listened to a podcast before, it sounds completely foreign of a concept and very complicated. It's nothing more than a radio station, if you want to look at it that way. This is just a radio show that I record, and you listen to it through a variety of mediums. Now, I personally listen to all my podcasts on Apple, the iTunes podcast, because it's already on my phone. I like the way that it's laid out. It's free. It doesn't cost me anything. And you can listen to this podcast free. It should not cost you any money to listen to this podcast. That's my personal preference. Whenever I am in the car, I do a lot of driving. It just connects to my car Bluetooth, and I can listen to all my podcasts. And the reason I love the Apple iTunes podcast personally is because it will play in the background, even if my phone is like on lock mode. It's not like it ends the recording like it would if I was listening to it through a browser, like a website, but it just plays. And so like if my phone rings, it'll kind of put the recording in the background, and then it'll bring the recording back up again whenever I'm done with my conversation. So I like that personally, but you can listen to, we are now on there's 10 different ways that you can listen to this podcast. So there are 8 different podcasting apps that you can listen through. Okay, there's Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. So there are 3 of them that allow you to listen without having to download an app or create an account. So if you wanted to listen on your desktop computer and you don't want to pull out your phone and listen, you can click on Google Podcasts, you can click on Anchor, or you can click on Radio Public. And if you go to the website, I have provided buttons for you on the website where it says listen to the podcast, so that you can go to any of these directly, and it will take you directly to the show, and you can listen on any medium through your website browser. So you don't have to have an app or an account to be able to listen to the show that way. I've also just started our YouTube channel. Now, right now, all we're going to have on there is audio, so it's not going to be a lot of videos. However, I would love to start creating videos and do some of that as we go forward. So you can go onto our YouTube channel, which is the Faces of Grand Prairie YouTube channel, and I will be uploading all of the podcasts that we are doing onto that platform. So if you'd like to listen through YouTube, and I will also have the episodes uploaded on the website directly so that you can click directly on an episode and listen to it from the website. That was the biggest challenge that I had when I started this podcast, is just the way to listen to it and just people not knowing how to do that. So I hope that I've made it as easy for you as possible, because I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to listen. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was some of our upcoming speakers we have coming up on the podcast. So we have Chief Daniel Sesney. He is the newly appointed chief of the Grand Prairie Police Department. I'm going to be talking with him. We are going to be talking to Susanna Delgado Gray. She is the executive director of the Grand Prairie YMCA. I'm going to be meeting and talking to Brian Para. I do not know him, but I was going through his Facebook page and heard that he was going to be running for school board candidate for Precinct 2, and he's also a very involved member of LULAC. He is a principal of a elementary school, I believe. So we're going to be talking to him. I'm going to be talking to Bonnie Cockrum and John Wiley, and they are from the Grand Prairie Historical Organization. They're going to be talking to us about what the organization does and some of the cool things that they're doing with digitizing old documents and things like that. It's a really cool organization. We actually have a museum in town, which a lot of people, I'm sure, don't even realize. It's very, very neat. And then there's a lot more coming. If you want to see all the upcoming podcast episodes, you can go to the website, and it is under upcoming episodes. So one of the upcoming episodes that I had an idea about, this is not just going to be interviews. There's going to be a lot of interviews with people, but like I said, the whole point of this podcast is a community-minded podcast that is about Grand Prairie. Well, that includes history. That includes things, the historical parts of this town. It includes things that people have done over the years and participated in events and stuff like that. And I was actually talking to one of our upcoming guests, Officer Greg New. He's with the Grand Prairie Police Department, and he was my resource officer at South Grand Prairie back in the day. But anyway, he is a graduate of Grand Prairie High School, and we were talking about, I don't even know how we got on this topic, but he mentioned Kip's Big Boy, and back in the 70s, that the Big Boy was taken a lot from his home at Kip's restaurant, placed in different places all over the city. And this happened for a while. It's actually in the paper. One year I found it in 1975 that the seniors during homecoming put him on top of the school, which was crazy. So anyway, it gave me an idea, because this is not the first time that I've heard somebody talk about Big Boy, to put out a feeler for people to leave me a voice message on the podcast and tell me of some stories of Big Boy. So what did y'all do with Big Boy? What was there some things that he did? And I love seeing people post their comments on Facebook, but I want to hear in your voice, and I want to hear in your storytelling narrative some stories about Big Boy. And a lot of people posted about this. A lot of people were interested in this topic, but not one person has sent me a voice message. I want to hear some of these stories, you guys. I can't do that episode unless you call in, because I have never had an opportunity to take Big Boy on any adventures. Kip's, I think, was closed when I was a kid, so I did go there once or twice as a child, but that was it. So I don't have any stories, but I know a lot of you do. So please go to the website, the Anchor app, and click on the link for voice message so that you can leave me a voice message, and I will put that link for our voice messages in the show notes. Okay, so the next item of business is sponsorships. I've had a lot of people ask me if I'm going to be selling advertisements on this program. And up until now, the podcast has more been something fun for me. It's just been a hobby, something that I really just kind of wanted to do. But I realized that as we move forward, it's going to grow into more than that. And so I've decided that I am going to start selling sponsorship ads on the website. to local businesses only. If you are a Grand Prairie based business or you service the community of Grand Prairie in your business, I would love to have you advertised on the podcast. And podcasting is a great medium for advertisers because the commercials aren't, they're just not, they're a more intimate way of getting in touch with the audience members. And I pretty much have made the sponsorships very affordable for small businesses. So if you are interested in that, you can go to the facesofgrandprairie.net website and click on where it says Media Kit, and it has the sponsorship levels available of what kind of ad you'd like to do on the program. And then you can contact me and let me know if you would be interested in hearing more about that. I'm still going to do the nonprofit spotlights for free, obviously. And so that is something that I'm offering. So make sure that when you do go to listen to this podcast, anywhere that it asks you to subscribe, please subscribe. All that subscribing means on a podcast app or YouTube or wherever just means that you are putting this channel on a channel that you want to hear more of. It's almost like liking a page on Facebook, it's exactly like liking a page on Facebook. Basically, it gives you the opportunity to be notified anytime something new comes up on that streaming device or on YouTube, on that channel. So just like on a Facebook page, whenever you like a business, you get to see the feed of that business. It's the same exact way with this podcast. But when you subscribe to this podcast, it tells me how many people are listening and how many people are dedicated listeners, and it gives me an opportunity to see who all's listening and where you're listening from. So please subscribe, like the Facebook page, and that's fantastic. But what I really need is for people to start subscribing to the podcast so that I can figure out how many dedicated listeners that we have. I'm trying to make this something that everybody wants to hear. I want to be inclusive in our content. I want to make sure that we're being diverse in our content so that all types of people from all areas of the city are being represented as guests. And I'm giving you content that everybody can be interested in. And so I can only do that if I know who our listeners are. So please go ahead and subscribe when you get a chance. And if you really like the podcast and you would like to support it in some way, you can become a donor to the podcast. You can do that for as low as $1 a month. I mean, it's not very expensive. If you really like the idea of what we're doing here, what I'm doing here, then I would love to have you be a sponsor. If you go to facesofgrandprairie.net, there is a button that says support the podcast, and you can go on there and do it from that point. The last thing I wanted to do was I wanted to call out a member of the community that, to be quite honest with you, has been my biggest supporter since the moment he heard about it. And I just cannot say enough good things about Charles Luckert. For those of you that don't know Charles, he is he has started the Grand Prairie at a Glance Facebook groups. And the Grand Prairie at a Glance, there are several of them on here. It's like Grand Prairie at a Glance News, Grand Prairie at a Glance School News, around town. These Facebook groups are garnering a lot of attention because they're not political in nature. All he's doing is just reporting or giving people information about what's going on around town. And Charles is he's a community influencer. I know that he doesn't look at himself that way, and I've talked to him before. I know that he doesn't look at himself that way, but that's exactly what he is. And I actually started working on getting a South Grand Prairie Alumni Association, which we don't have one. It made no sense to me that we didn't, but anyways. So we were working on starting that. And Charles showed up because Charles is the South Grand Prairie alumni. And he shows up to the meeting, and that's where I kind of met him face to face. I knew of the Facebook groups, and I was a part of the Facebook groups, but I met him face to face. And he immediately told me how much he loves the idea of the podcast, and since then has supported us at every turn. And I cannot tell him how wonderful he's been. And I just wanted to give him a little shout out and tell him that. And I asked him to be a guest on the podcast. He said he wasn't interesting enough, which I told him is nonsense. But hopefully you guys encourage him to become a guest on the show because he's a really cool guy. I love his enthusiasm for what he's doing. And he's really, really helped to try to, he's also, some of the questions he's asked about listening to the podcast has really helped me to see where some of our opportunities are for listeners to be able to engage and listen. So just want to tell you, thank you, Charles. I appreciate you. So that's it for today. There are a few things that you have on your agenda to do. Number one, if you have a student that would be interested in recording a spotlight for our nonprofits, please have them email me at jenna@jennapecor.com, and I will put my email in. Actually, my email is on the Facebook group. It's everywhere. So anywhere that you're going to go to Face of Grand Prairie podcast, you're going to find my email. So students, email me. If you have a nonprofit you'd like me to spotlight, you need to send me over that as well. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, you can go to our website and click contact us and that you want to be a guest. If you are a sponsor that wants to have an advertisement on the podcast, also go to facesofgrandprairie.net and you can click on the media kit, find out how much our sponsorships are. Subscribe to the podcast. Do that right after you get off of this podcast list. I want you to hit the subscribe button the second you get done with this listening to this podcast. Let's see. I need people to voice message me about Big Boy, Kip's Big Boy, so that we can do that. And if you'd like to see any of our upcoming guests, you can go to the website and check those out as well. So I've given you a lot of homework today, and I'm very sorry about that because it is going to be the weekend. But well, I'm really not sorry. I want everybody to do that. So thank you guys for listening. And I'm so very excited about doing this podcast. And I'm so very excited about all the people we have coming up that you're going to be so interested in listening to. So have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next week with Chief Daniel Sesney, that we're going to have our interview posted next week with him. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you later.